Okay, I've got my notes on this machine here, so I'm going to be wandering 2, 1, 4. Isn't it hard to follow Carlo? Okay, I think we're going to have quite different talks. This is a photograph of traffic in Beijing. And I think we've been living with the private car, the transport system dominated by the private car for so long that it's hard to imagine life without it. The UK government in 2011, the Department of Transport went away and said they thought traffic would increase by 50% in the next 25 years, and there would be basically no carbon savings. A bunch of academics in the UK and in other countries believe that we've already reached peak car, and that car traffic is going to be going down. London traffic appears to have fallen by 50% in the last 10 years. I'm aware I've got Peter Hendy in the audience, and he might disagree, but there's been considerable decreases. As an information person, I see all these people sitting in metal boxes that I believe are quite expensive, getting in each other's way, and there's not a lot of communication going on about the fact that they're wanting to go in the same direction, at least at this point. There are a few buses, but they're stuck in the traffic too. I want to just look at the last sort of 10 or so years. This photograph comes from Wikipedia. Thank you very much. Wikipedia didn't exist 10 years ago. Nor did Flickr, Twitter, Facebook, Wikipedia, Open Data, Creative Commons, Google Maps, Amazon, YouTube, etc. So that's what's come in the last 10 years. What's going to come next? And I believe that transport in the information age will be as different from transport in the industrial age as that was from the agricultural age. There will be cars, but we will be using them in very different ways. And bear in mind, the Encyclopedia Britannica was first published in 1768. This year, they published it for the last time. Why? Because people don't want a physical encyclopedia anymore. They'll look it up on the web. Not only will they look it up on the web or their smartphone, they will trust a bunch of volunteers who they don't know for that information in Wikipedia, possibly. So if those are the changes that are happening elsewhere, what could be happening in our transport system? Anyone who knows, okay, sorry, I need to press that button, and then you can see what I can see there. Anyone who's followed transport knows that protest is the way, it's part of the engagement. It's part of the engagement between policy. Whether you go back to the Rebecca riots, which were in Wales in the 1840s, which were about road pricing. They were about the turnpikes and charges for using the roads. The freeway revolts in America in the 1960s, critical mass, which started in 92, which the theme was, we are traffic, we're not getting in the way of traffic, we are traffic. And then, of course, there was a petition in the UK against road pricing policies, which had 2 million signatures. So 1840s, we were talking about road pricing, we're still talking about them in 2009. One can't ignore the views of the people. And the views of people are increasingly adapted and in a very complicated social media setting. I think that road closures, are they road closures? Is this a road? Oh, hang on. No, sorry, I need to press that button. I'll get the hang of it eventually. This is called a road closure. It's actually a road opening. Because it used to be full of cars and the people were squished to the side. Now people can come out. This is New York. This is Summer Streets. It first happened in 2008. This is a very new idea. And people can enjoy a city without cars for 2 or 3 weekends. And the question is, what do they then go back and ask for the rest of the time? It's not just the US. I need to press that button. On the right, we have the Paris plage, which was first happened in 2002. So that, again, is under 10 years old, where they turn a highway into a beach. And this was the opening of, does anyone know this? This is the A40 road in Germany. When they opened it, they laid out a banqueting table of 20,000 tables, and it's in the Guinness Book of Records. 30,000 people came and enjoyed the road, walking and cycling, and they had to close access to the road because there were so many people on it, and not one of them was motorized. But the real innovation, as far as I can see, is going to come from the information technology applied onto our current transport system. A zip car is still a car, but it's not a car that we privately own. So the ownership model has changed. A zip car was started in 2000, so that's under 10 years old. A Velib is still a bicycle, but you hire it by the hour, and the Velib, I think, was 2007. High occupancy toll lanes, where you bid and the price varies according to how many people single occupancy vehicles want to join the high occupancy vehicle lanes. And the first one was in 1998, and there's a big scheme in the United States, which I'm very interested in, which is rolling now. It's still a road, but you pay for it in a different way. And of course, then there's information for public transport users. We work with Google. We're a supplier to Google for their public transport services in London. The one thing that will not change, regardless of virtually how much money we change at it, is the physical infrastructure. These railway lines are pretty much where the Victorians laid them down in England, and the same is true for other countries. It was trimmed down considerably in the 1960s. There are a few additions. We're talking about one high-speed line. There's one other major line, east-west rail link, which I'm interested in because I live over on the East Coast. But fundamentally, I'm going to have to live with that rail network for the rest of my life. Similarly for the road network, this is the thickness of these roads according to how many lanes there are. So you get a sense as to how much highway capacity there is. Again, even with the best will in the world and an awful lot of money, that system is going to look pretty much the same in 10 years as it does now. What will happen is this is a very interesting data set. This data set was released as open data by the UK government, and if you're in a country that's not releasing your data as open data, please start now. Because all sorts of people can go and take your data, nose around in it, and find interesting stories in it, which is really what our company does. So we have a few roads in the UK which have more than 200,000 vehicles per day going on them. I think I've got a little jobby there, yeah, just round Heathrow Airport. A bunch of them with 100 to 200,000. Generally, you need a 4-lane road to do that. And then we get down to the smaller ones for a 3-lane road and the 2-lane road. And what has happened to how we're using the road space has changed very considerably in 10 years. We've got count points, the same count points for 10 years now, coming through this system. So this is private cars and taxis, I believe, or cars and taxis. This is a change in a 9-year period from 2001 to 2010. And this area here, which is basically covers all of London, has seen a decrease of greater than 30% in the number of cars. There was a widening of the M2 here, which means that this section of the A2 has got a great big increase. I suppose this lot might be to do with widening the M25. I haven't tracked that one down. But you can go and tell the stories, and generally if you widen the road, you'll get more traffic. Widening the M25 was described to the Transport Select Committee as digging a ditch in a bog. It fills up as fast as you dig, unless you do road pricing, which we haven't done. But what about buses? Hang on, that's it. What about buses? Huge increase in buses in London. During this period, the London congestion charge was brought in. It was brought in 2003, and part of the deal was that you'd get a lot more buses. The story around the rest of the country is very mixed. We've got these red, we've got more over here, parts here, but then we've got areas where there's quite a lot of decrease. Now, I'd say that all this data requires a lot more work, a lot more understanding as to what's going on. But laying it out on a map seems to be a good start. Bicycles, the increase in cycling has been so great recently that I've had to change the scale. The plus scale, it only started to be interesting if you started to put over 100%. So the number of cycling has doubled in 9 years in London. And in London, for every 100 cars, there are now 15 bicycles. So approximately 15% of the traffic is now cycles. The area I'd like to look at now, though, is the strategic interurban transport network, because that's really where I say we need some ideas in the UK. Sorry, Mr. Baker. No, I mean, we have this model, and I think a lot of countries have the model, that we have roads, which are used for whatever vehicles want to use them, railways, and then we have airports. And so often you hear people talk about the 3 modes of transport. So this is looking at the number of vehicles on the strategic road network only. But if you start breaking that down, you start noticing that, sorry, I'll never get the hang of this. A lot of the roads have over 80% of the vehicles on the road are private cars. And what we know is that those cars will have, most of those cars will have one occupant. Some will have two and a few will have more. Average occupancy of 1.2 to 1.6, depending on the time of day. We can see some parts, we're down to under 70% cars, but the figures are still very high. And I've got very excited in the last few years by express coach, which are these things. These things run between Oxford and London every 10 minutes. The fares are a quarter of they are on the railways. They produce far fewer emissions. They require no subsidy from the government, and they use the roads that already exist. Using these things, you can move 60,000 people per hour per lane, rather than 2,000. And they've got Wi-Fi, and they've got power sockets. So you can sit there and you can engage with all these information technology devices that you can't do when you're driving the car. Okay, so how is coaches supported in the UK? Okay, coaches are not allowed in the outside lane. Only private cars are. Coaches have a lower speed than the cars, and the cars are possibly getting a higher speed. And there was an M4 bus lane coming into London, which has been removed. So generally the message is, it's almost coach across Europe, to a large extent, supports despite policy rather than because of policy. If we go to very famous Transmilenio in Bogota, they take part of the highway and they make it available only to coaches, and they build these very fine interchanges. Transmilenio, year 2000. Coaches aren't fast enough. Try that one. Have you seen this? Has any people seen this? It's basically it's a stretched electric 225 km/h Lamborghini. It's not made by Lamborghini, but it has a top speed of 225 miles an hour. Super bus. It's built by Delft University. It's being trialled around the place at the moment. So how well do we use these very fine high occupancy vehicles on our roads? Well, the answer is you have to look at it's about between 1 in 100 and 1 in 200 vehicles going along some of these networks. And this is one of the most busy networks. This is the Oxford to London Tube. We just managed to get over 1% of the vehicles being coaches. And if we now look at change in counts. So this is looking at how the usage of the road network has changed. And what we find is that this corridor here, the number of coaches has gone down, and also around the M25. This requires further research because there's been various widening going on in the M25, as I mentioned, and there have been various road closures. Oh, I've got to hurry up. That have been going on. And so that might be a little bit flaky. Okay, hang on. I'm in a muddle now. Right, we started with China. We're going to finish with China. This is what this system launched in 2010.
This is Guangzhou, formerly known as Canton. Population of about 10 to 15 million.
Guangzhou won the International Sustainable Transportation Award this year because of their remarkable new bus rapid transit system.
We promote bus rapid transit in China to solve the transportation congestion problems.
Okay, so basically in 10 years we've gone, a huge amount has changed in how we're using our roads, and I don't think that's going to stop. Thank you very much.
Microphone works, after all. Okay, you've taken us to the UK. We stay in the UK, focus on London now, because our next speaker holds an undergraduate physics degree, a PhD in nanotechnology and quantum computing. He worked as a clinical medical physics researcher, and he also is a passionate musician. And he found a quite interesting, probably unique way to combine all these skills. And he will take us now on a seamless trip through London. Enjoy. Dr. Martin Ostwick.
Thank you very much. I'm a lecturer, believe it or not, at the UCL Centre for Advanced Spatial Analysis. And There we go. So one of the big themes that we have at CASA is open data. We're very interested in the big data, the open data that's coming out. And one of the very good data sets that we've been working on is the London bike share scheme, called by some Boris bikes, by slightly fewer Barclays bikes, Ken bikes if you're politically inclined. And Transport for London have been fantastic about releasing this data, and actually as time goes on, they're releasing more and more open data describing their journeys. So we've used that to create visualizations of the path of these hire bikes through the city. Now, rather than, I'm going to show you what this looks like now, I hope. Yeah, there we go. So rather than describing in excruciating detail what's going on in this visualization, how it was produced, I can do that afterwards. If you're interested, please do come and ask me those technical questions. I'm going to give you a song which tells you about the path of a single bike through London. And this is based on real data, I should say. This is real information. And if you don't know London very well, hopefully this will give you a flavour for the different parts of the city. And if you do know London, I hope you don't feel too caricatured. Another Saturday morning, hanging round King's Cross, waiting for a London bum to sit upon my seat. The sun is shining brightly, well, realistically it's not. This is London after all, so it's probably rain and sleet. Now I'm moving down to Mayfair on this February day to find a gift for Valentine's. It's a couple of days away. I've been ridden to the Grand Elephant and Castle, the jewel in South London's crown, if you like roundabouts. Ride me up to the South Bank, London's Riviera, or take me down to Artie Peckham, but come on, take me out. A ride around London town can be a famine or a feast. Then another one sits down and we start heading east. We're in cool East London, bikes are in Hoxton Square, but I get laughed at in Shoreditch for my unfashionable hair. So we speed west through the best that hipsters have to show, to the West End, where the older hipsters go when they get bored at warehouses and the YBAs. They can enjoy a musical and a glass of Beaujolais. It's Saturday, so let's have a picnic up in Regent's Park, and maybe we'll go shopping for some Kensington fare. There really are a lot of 4x4s and prams around, so let's drop in for a baby chino just by Sloane Square. No sooner have I tried to have a sip of tea, another bum has got on board and rolled away with me. The day is nearly over, I must say goodbye, my friends. I've travelled seamlessly from Chelsea to the East End. We soon must part, but don't be sad, don't be filled with sorrow. There'll be another set of seats sitting on my seat tomorrow. There'll be another set of seats sitting on my seat tomorrow. Thank you very much. I assume there aren't any questions about that.